Jim, I think I want to know if there's anything that surprised you in there. You've lived your life, and this was about your life. When you hear people talking about you, was there anything that struck you there?
Yeah, I was actually. I was
Are you angry at me?
Angry, Peter. I'm just disappointed. Yeah, Donnie Downer. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing you. I appreciate you. I'm not sure. It's really hard for me to be objective about any of this because it was, me all the time. So but Jeremy, I thought you did a great job.
Thank you, Jim.
I was a little bit, part of me, we couldn't keep the film too long, and I got Jeremy to even take some stuff out, but now I'm kind of regretting you taking some of the non-musical parts out, like how, and luckily some people had their camera phones out, like when I thwarted the guys who were trying to steal the little old lady's purse, and I tracked them down, or the bank robbery, things like that.
Those were great, but your assault on little Billy Gilman was incredible, I think. And it's, I think if you're going to have the one, you've got to have the other as a balancing aspect. And so I think it's good for you that some of these things were.
For me, it was just anything that's already on Team Z didn't need to be in the film.
No, seriously.
Well, I loved seeing the moment that I first saw you, which was the Emmylou Harris hosted. Emmylou was guest hosting for Ralph Emery on TNN, and she had you and Dwight Yoakam on, and I was living in the Bird's Nest Apartments in Spartanburg, South Carolina, going to college, and I saw you saying you stole the night from Dwight, and Dwight was pissed, and that part didn't make the movie, but that was true. Those women that kept asking if you were single, they weren't asking about Dwight, and it was a point of contention. But I remember watching this little screen and you singing Where the Sidewalk Ends in King of Broken Hearts, and just thinking this is an extraordinary moment. It was cool, and it's one of the many things to thank Emmylou Harris for in all of our lives. But Jeremy, I'm wondering when your initiation into Jim Lauderdale land was, if you had an experience like that, or if you just saw him at a festival and you were half-bombed and thought, oh, okay.
Well, I wasn't half-bombed because I was 11 years old at the time. That would have been inappropriate. Yeah. It was Tamworth, this festival called the Tamworth Country Music Festival, back in Australia. Jim's first trip down under, 12 years ago now. And I saw him on this, he was doing the Songwriters in the Round show, and I didn't know the name, but I sat down and I watched, and every song he played, I was like, that's that Dixie Chicks song, or that's that George Strait song, or that Gary Allen song, or that Solomon Burke song, and everything he played was one of my favourite songs, and I didn't know that he'd written any of them, and that sort of was what started my, fixation. And I got to meet Jim then, and over the years we became friends, and the more I've got to know him and the more we've become friends and the more I've got to experience his personality. And it all just naturally led to making this film. The more that I got to know Jim and got to know his backstory and got to know this extraordinary persistence for his artistic vision in the face of all this, struggles and rejection over the years.
Yeah. And that's what we should focus on, is the rejection. That's what I tried to comment on. Okay, right as I was leaving the house, I went to my CD shelf and I picked out some Jim Lauderdale CDs off of the shelf. And then I picked out some more Jim Lauderdale CDs off the shelf. I think I've got more Jim Lauderdale in my collection than anybody except Dylan, and that's because of bootlegs. What I want to know is, in the making of this extraordinary body of work, was there ever a time when you really thought, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. You remark in the film about being discouraged at times. Did that ever impact your creativity?
Well, when I was doing the record called Persimmons, that I started it before I did the Atlantic records, and but I didn't finish it. It didn't come out till right before the RCA records. And the guy that when I had this meeting at RCA, I'm not sure what title he was, but he was like, "Oh no, this is cool that we can use this Persimmons record, and we can be involved in that and everything, and then that'll lead into the RCA stuff." And then he left the label like shortly after that, so that kind of went by the wayside. But I remember when I was making Persimmons, I thought, okay, I'm going to give this one last shot. If it doesn't happen this time, then I'm going to reconsider things. Maybe I'll just write for other people all the time or whatever. And so it didn't happen. And now I can't remember, but it seems like it happened a few more times. I thought, all right, this one last record. And if it doesn't. So, but now I just, no, it's not. Be a big, commercial success. So I just keep making.
And on the Persimmons record, you were so devoted to the commercial mainstream that you were doing stuff about a guy who's convinced about aliens coming down and things like that. Completely commercial subjects.
Well, the X-Files was a big hit at the time.
That's right. That's right. You've even in times when you've tailored it, when you felt like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot at this. It's never been at the expense of the core of why you wanted to write. Have you always felt compelled to write in that way? Has it been did you ever think, oh, maybe I'll be the singer in a cover band? I can sing several octaves and whatever I want.
I got offered a couple of gigs, like when I was in college, and then later after college, and this guy said, "Hey, listen, I've got this club down in Myrtle Beach, Alabama, I used to play at, and you can." And it worked out pretty good for those guys, huh?
The Bowery.
Yeah, and so, but I didn't. I almost, joined a couple of bands, but didn't, because I really like writing. For a while, I had a day job kind of doing these plays where I was playing guitar and banjo. But I got real, I felt after a while, it was great to get the paycheck and I'd use them for demos and stuff, but I felt real, it didn't feel right not to be singing the stuff I was doing. I felt like I was wasting my time, so.
Jeremy, there's a lot of musicians in the world, and there's more musicians than films and documentaries. More people than documentaries. Raise your hand if you've had a documentary made about you in this room. Me neither. I get that.
Guilty as charged.
I think I understand what it is that you love about Jim's singing and his music and his personality, but what made you just go, this is the story that I want to tell?
Well, it was a combination of things. Like when we had that conversation at the Beatles Museum that really sparked the idea for me, I was getting towards the end of making my last film that I directed, which wasn't a documentary, and was called Benjamin Sniddlegrass and the Cauldron of Penguins. And that had been an experience and I was eager to not repeat a lot of the aspects of that experience, which were...
The Cauldron of Penguins in particular was disturbing to children.
That's what I blame the financial failure of that film. But I didn't want to write a script again, and I didn't want to have... I thought, what can I do where I know the story is great, and it's not relying on me to come up with a great story. I know the costumes are going to be great, and I know the soundtrack's going to be great. And, Jim's story naturally ticked all of those boxes. And it was also there were some threads running through Jim's life that I thought made it a really fascinating subject for a film, aside from just the story we've been talking about, how he just persevered and just followed his musical star through all this turmoil, which was, you sort of also got to tell a story about how country music has changed over the last 20 years and the rise of Americana, which is a genre I'm really passionate about, and I'm on the Australian Advisory Group for the Americana Association.
We're taking advice from Australians now?
Yeah, well, you want Tim Tam? That's Australian delicacy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Jim?
Okay. I'm a Christian. I don't.
Really good. And the other thing was, one of the big themes for this story for me is hero worship. Like, you know, Jim starts off, you know, one of his first big songs, which is the song the film is named after, is about Graham Parsons and George Jones, two of his heroes, and then he gets to later collaborate with his heroes like Ralph Stanley, and then wins a Grammy with one of his childhood heroes. And then you've got people like, you know, Ketch Sequel from Old Crow Medicine Show and Sonny Sweeney, to whom, you know, they're the next generation on, and Jim is one of their heroes. And to get to feed all that into it when, you know, Jim's one of my heroes, and then there are other heroes of mine like Elvis Costello in the film as well, and that was really appealing to me as well.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of which, and I don't know if he's still out there, but speaking of heroes, a real important man to me out there is Manuel. Is he still there?
Makes you look
It's like every gig I've done, just about, there's probably only been about 10 or 12 gigs since 1986 when I first started getting stuff from Manuel that I haven't worn at least something that he's created, and so I'm really grateful to him and really appreciate it. I told somebody one time, it's like wearing something that Manuel makes is like wearing something that Picasso made. You know, it's like they're pieces of art.
They are. And out of every single one of the gigs that I've done, have not been lucrative enough for me to afford a Manuel jacket, but they are exquisite. In talking about heroes, we should say I got the weirdest call. The most amazing and daunting thing one day was a call. I was asked if I could write the text for George Jones' gravestone. Wow. Yeah, when you're typing something, you go, well, it ain't set in stone, you know. But I immediately, I thought, well, I can write some of it, but it needs to lead with Jim Lauderdale's words. And if you go to visit George Jones' gravestone out on Thompson Lane, you'll see it says, he was the king of broken hearts, and that was from Jim's song.
Thank you so much.
Kind of an indelible part of us at this point.
It means so much to me. You did that. Thank you.
Jeremy, was there a challenge in making this film? And I know you had difficulty like getting faceless corporate monolithic record companies to make a reasonable deal on the soundtrack, but in terms of conceptually and storytelling, was there a challenge in making this film?
Well, going into it, I kind of had, and I think a lot of people feel like this when they're making documentaries, they go, oh, it's not like a regular movie. It doesn't have to have the same kind of story. And then after I did the first cut of the film, I realised, oh no, it does. It really does. So we did the filming in 2 blocks. I came over in June in 2011 just on my own and shot a bunch of stuff, and then I came back the following year, and I'd acquired a producer in the meantime, this guy named Chris Kamen, who has done tremendous work on the film, and we came back together. And in that time, I'd actually gone and got all, my screenwriting books out, and I'd mapped out Jim's life across the structure, like the same way, Casablanca or The Fugitive or whatever would be structured. It works the same way for a documentary. So I put all that together, and then I had to go, well, we don't have anything for this bit of the story or this bit of the story or this bit of the story. But really the biggest challenge in making the film was that I live in Australia and about 0 people in the film live in Australia. So I had to travel literally to the other side of the world, get money together to allow me to travel to the other side of the world, and then in a very brief period of time that I could afford to be in America. Like the second trip we went over, I was here for about 3.5, 4 weeks, and in that time we went Sydney, LA, Nashville, Franklin, Nashville, Asheville, Wilkesboro, Asheville, Durham, Nashville, Los Angeles, California Desert, Rimrock, Pioneer Town, San Diego, back to Nashville, back to Sydney. And that was all trying to keep up with Jim through that period, though, fitting in interviews with other people around him. He's at Melfest, and then he's cutting a record, and then he's in California, and then he's cutting another record, and then he's out in the desert riding, and then he's cutting another record. And I said to Jim at one point that making a movie about him is like doing a printed how-to guide for a piece of computer software, because by the time it comes out, it's already out of date. It's just a coincidence that it took him a couple of years to get I'm a Song finished and get that out, that we managed to cover those sessions in the film, and that's his current album. So that worked out nicely.
That's amazing. And he's only got 3 more now done, I think, and ready to come out.
At least, I'm sure.
Jim, are there poignant moments in watching that film for you, other than seeing Buddy Miller with his hat off? Are there poignant moments?
Yeah, seeing pictures of my family and when in the desert, some of that stuff. It was a full moon and it was
Super
dark.
full
It
moon.
was, and some of those songs were just coming to me, and different things kind of get me real emotional when I've watched it. And I can't really pinpoint them right now, but it's kind of odd things when they happen. But
Do you feel yourself back in those moments, like in the music videos? Do you feel the guy that you were doing that? Or?
It's in some ways, yeah. And like the stuff with that song Lucky 13, it was my birthday. It was my record release party that I was supposed to be, or whatever. We were shooting the video at the Palomino, and the record company didn't give me any money to do the stuff and everything, but it was a lot of fun, and
Record release party for a record that didn't come out for 12 years or so after that. Which followed, and one thing that's not a film, the first album that you made when you came here was with Roland Wright, right?
Yeah.
The great bluegrasser, and that's in the vaults somewhere.
we can't find them. We can't find them.
Right.
But it was these different things that would happen in my career, and I thought, okay, now finally this has happened, and then it didn't, and they never did. But in retrospect, when I look back, I'm glad they didn't, because still, and I'm dealing with it better and better, but this business is just filled with rejection, like I was mentioning, and so I still feel like a beginning recording artist, because nothing is really broken through, in my eyes at least, so I'm still out there having to slug it away, so I need to keep coming up with new things. And I think that if it would have happened back during the Reprise record, the Planet of Love record, the record before that, I don't know.
You could be out doing
I could
county
be out
fairs doing, here's a medley of my 2 hits or something, and trying to be in a mold.
But on the other hand, it could have been as big as like Garth Brooks or something.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Be,
No, it would be constraining. Jim, you just wouldn't want success like that.
I saw I saw Nick Lowe at a Nick Lowe concert a couple of years ago, and before he played Cruel to Be Kind, he said, "I'd like to do a medley of my hit."
Jim's got a lot more than that, actually, and my favorite versions of all those songs. It's something else. The luck has been extraordinary and extraordinarily weird at times. I recall there was a song that Jim wrote that Patti Loveless did with George Jones singing harmonies, a beautiful, beautiful song, and it was shooting towards #1, and there were a couple stations, I know one in Phoenix, that refused to play it, country station, because
it had George Jones.
It had George Jones singing on it.
And there's one in Colorado Springs, and they told the label, they said, if you take George off, then, and I mean, can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. That's well, it's all great.
Right.
Yeah, it's all great. Should we open up the
Sure.
floor to a couple questions that are better than mine? Anything you want to know about Jim, I know he'll answer anything. He's an open book.
Nothing's too personal.
Nothing.
Yes.
What'd your family think about the documentary? Your family members?
You know, my sister has only seen a little bit of it, but she liked it, you know. So now she'll be able to see the whole thing. My folks have both passed away, but, you know, my relatives will see it. So.
And I'll say with that, just one thing that was really, I've been to many Jim Lauderdale shows over the years in numerous states, and when Jim's folks were around and traveling, they were there, and his mother would just beam to watch him. I stood beside her at some of his shows, and it was just, it wasn't a deal where they were going, oh, we're trying to support him in whatever it is, you know, that he wants to do. It was, they were just eaten up with the music and the notion of seeing him there being himself. It was really a special deal. They were wonderful people.
She was...
And your dad's a minister, which is why you won't eat Tim Tams.
Right,
Yeah.
right. My mom was a choir director and music teacher, and I always felt real protective of her when I'd play in these clubs. And one time they came to see me when I was playing at this place called Be Here Now in Nashville. It's not there anymore, but it was one of those places where I didn't want them to come in the dressing room because it had the most foul graffiti you could imagine. And so the funny thing was, it was on a Sunday, and it was an early show. It was like 5 or something, because there was this kind of hardcore group coming on later called Nashville, and it started with a P, and I don't know why. And there are these posters of that group, but it said Nashville P star Y. You know, and I was just trying to distract them. Looking around.
It's a cat-themed band.
Yes, but they're very such sweet folks. But you know, one thing, you know, this has been really great to have the documentary, but I want people to know that it has not changed me at all. I am the same. I mean, you know, Jim is just the same as he's always been. It hasn't gone to his head. We are the same as we've always been.
You are, and again, having seen so many shows, you are always so kind to the little people. You know, the proletariat you treat just like, you know, just like they're almost as good as you. Yeah, it's been great. What other questions? Yes.
Would you like to say something about your guitar, which looks like it's been through
Sure.
all of your life?
Well, that, you know, I started using it, I got it a little before I did those Atlantic records, and I call it Coco, and it's made by Collings, and it's like a Martin D28 herringbone. They're made in Austin, and I just, you know, used it so much, and there were so many late night jams. Like one night down at this festival in Florida, I play called Spring Fest. I stayed up with these guys till 8 in the morning just by this campfire, and that's where it got some of the first scratches on it, and it's fallen off things a few times onto gravel and things like that, but it sounds really good. And it's if it was a vintage guitar that was pristine or something, I never would have taken it out on the road. So it's just one that I feel good about taking out.
It's interesting. It's on that guitar's on the cover of the Every Second Counts album,
Yeah.
I believe. And if you look at that cover and then look at the guitar today, it's
changed.
It's been a while.
And
Yeah.
also the back of the Other Sessions record too, and it's just doesn't seem like it has a scratch on it.
Yeah. Yes.
Jim, a lot of people tell me, especially like Gerlin Thompson, he'd say Jim is the hardest working artist in Nashville. How do you keep up with your schedule? I mean,
Well, now that's not true. Why, there's James Bratt. Yes. Well, it just, I need to someday chill out a little bit because I get pretty fried and worn out. I do what they call the weekend warrior thing, like the Nashville, a lot of folks from Nashville country artists, instead of going out on, unless you're like a major superstar where you go out for months at a time or whatever, these big tours, is that most people that live here go out on the weekends, maybe a Thursday through Sunday or something. So I do that. And I always felt kind of embarrassed through the years when I see people and they'd be like, well, where's your bus or whatever, and I'd be like going, I didn't bring one this time. A one-off thing. But then when I saw that movie Crazy Hearts, and so it's a lot, I thought, wow, it's very similar. Except I don't eat as much red meat. It's that kind of, but in the character. But so, a lot of weekend stuff, flying or whatever. But it seems like my timing or stuff has really been, out of kilter or whatever, but it's just the way it is, but
Maybe in a bottom line aspect, at times it has been out of kilter, but the timing for us as listeners has been pretty extraordinary. I mean, for 25 years. For 25 years, you've been putting out remarkable music that's part of the soundtrack, certainly of my life, and I'm sure for a lot of y'all's. And thank you to Jeremy Dillon for capturing.
I think we need to do, in a few years, we need to do a follow-up to
Oh yeah.
Well, Jim keeps asking me, like, when am I going to write a movie for him? You're going to write his movie.
Yeah.
He's going to take over as Iron Man because Robert Downey Jr. said he's not doing any more Iron Man movies.
What about the Wilford Brimley thing?
Oh, that's the punchline.
That was the punchline.
You keep dropping all these names, like Wilford Brimley, and it's a real, I used to be like that. I used to drop names all the time, especially when I was making this because there's so many famous people in it. But Jim helped me get out of that habit, and it's been 6 months or so since I last name dropped. And it's so funny because just last night I was on the phone. I was talking to Elvis Costello about how pretentious name dropping is.
Jim has been through that before too. He told me one time, some years ago, he was like, name dropping, it's terribly rude. I was just having a discussion about that at a party at the home of Judge Lance Ito.
God, I'm sweating up here like Rush Limbaugh and Indigo Girls. Sorry, we're just doing all Jim's jokes.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get the hell out of here.